Hold on tight. This isn't your ordinary history lesson. Imagine a vehicle born from a dream of peace, twisted into a tool of conquest, yet so brilliantly simple it earned the reluctant respect of its enemies. A machine that became as much a symbol of its army as the helmet on a soldier's head. This is the wild, paradoxical, and gripping story of the Kübelwagen. Don't go anywhere. This deep dive will change how you see engineering, war, and legacy. If you love untold stories, hit subscribe and smash that like button. And tell me in the comments, can you admire the machine but condemn its master? Let's dive in. Excellent challenge. I dove headfirst into this topic, and a whole story unfolded before me. Not just about a car, but about an era, engineering genius, brutal paradoxes, and an astonishing mechanical destiny. Get ready for a long but, I assure you, fascinating journey. Take a moment, subscribe to the channel. There are many more deep dives like this ahead. And be sure to write in the comments what you think about this vehicle and its role in history. Your opinion is priceless to me. Now picture this. Mud, waist-deep snow, hellish frost near Moscow, or scorching sun and merciless sands in Tunisia. And against this backdrop, an angular, almost toy-like looking vehicle briskly overcoming what seemed insurmountable. It doesn't roar with a powerful engine, but rather hums like a persistent beetle. Its driver, frostbitten or exhausted by the heat, probably cursed everything, but he trusted this strange contraption. This isn't the formidable tiger or the swift panther. This is a soldier's workhorse, the Kübelwagen, and its story begins not in a factory, but in a promise to every German of their own car. Have you ever wondered how the most benevolent populist idea can be perverted and put into the service of the most destructive war machine? Right now, we will trace this dark transformation from a dream of freedom of movement to mobility for conquest. This is the story of how the people's car, the Volkswagen Beetle, put on a military uniform and became the Kübelwagen, the reliable off-roader of the Wehrmacht. And this isn't just a dry technical account. This is a story of intrigue, brilliant engineering solutions, terrifying efficiency, and that strange feeling when you admire a machine while knowing whose goals it served. Part 1. Dream and Steel. From KDF wagon to Kübelwagen. To understand the essence of the Kübelwagen, we must go back to the early 30s. Germany, humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, ruined by the Great Depression. Adolf Hitler steps onto the stage, who, among other things, masterfully spoke of progress and the people's welfare. He dreamed of repeating the American success of Henry Ford, to make the car not a luxury, but an affordable means of transportation for every family. The Volkswagen, the people's car. This idea was a powerful propaganda tool. In 1934, at the Berlin Motor Show, Hitler met the talented and ambitious engineer Ferdinand Porsche. Their dialogue was a mix of technical vision and political order. Hitler set clear, almost impossible tasks. The car must carry 2 adults and 3 children, the standard German family of that era, reach a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, consume no more than 7 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers, and cost no more than 990 Reichsmarks, a fantastically low price comparable to the cost of a motorcycle. Porsche, who had been nurturing the idea of a compact rear-engine car for years, enthusiastically took on the project. But here lies the first paradox and the first hint of future military service. In their conversations, according to several sources, a military version was discussed from the very beginning. Hitler thought strategically, millions of civilian cars across the country. In case of war, that's millions of chassis that could be quickly adapted for military needs. The people's car had a double bottom from its very conception. The project became known as the KDF wagon, Strength Through Joy, named after the Nazi leisure program. Essentially, it was a huge state pyramid scheme. Germans signed up for weekly payments for a car that most of them never received. This money financed the factories and, as later became clear, military preparations. Time passed, Germany rearmed, violating one by one the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. The Wehrmacht, the new army, needed mobility. Motorcycles with sidecars, trucks, all this existed, but they lacked precisely a light, universal, staff and reconnaissance vehicle capable of operating on broken roads and light off-road terrain. and the military's gaze logically fell on Porsche's nearly finished project. The Beetle's chassis, with its rear-mounted air-cooled engine, independent suspension, and flat underbody, proved to be an ideal base. The engineers under Porsche's leadership, it's important to note the role of Erwin Komenda, the chief designer, and others, didn't reinvent the wheel. They took the proven mechanical components and dressed them in a completely new utilitarian body. Thus, the Type 82, the Kübelwagen, was born. The name itself, bucket car, Kübel means bucket, tub, came from the shape of the open seats, reminiscent of overturned tubs. It was a Spartan, angular device devoid of any frills. But its secret lay precisely in this Spartan nature. Part 2. The genius of simplicity. Why it worked where others got stuck. Now let's compare it to its future sworn brother, the American Willys MB. This is a key point for understanding the German engineering philosophy. The Americans went down the path of classic four-wheel drive. A transfer case, 2 axles, rigid axles. This guaranteed phenomenal off-road capability, but complicated and weighed down the construction. The Germans, or rather Porsche, bet on ingenuity and lightness. Here are its main advantages, which I will analyze in detail. Air-cooled engine. Imagine North Africa. Temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. A conventional liquid-cooled engine boils, requiring constant attention to water, which is chronically scarce in the desert. But the Kübelwagen didn't care. Its opposed 4-cylinder engine was simply air-cooled. No radiator, nothing to break or leak. Now let's move to Stalingrad, where frosts drop to -30. To start a regular engine, you need to pour antifreeze into the radiator, heat-water struggle. But the Kübelwagen had a brilliant starting system. A small auxiliary fuel tank with a special starting mixture, which was poured directly into the cylinders via special taps. Start it and go. This was a colossal operational advantage. Flat underside and independent suspension. This is perhaps the most brilliant move. The Willys had protruding axle housings that tended to catch on bumps, stumps, snowdrifts. The Kübelwagen's underside was smooth as a skillet. When it got beached on its belly in mud or deep snow, its underbody didn't catch but slid. The wheels, thanks to the independent torsion bar suspension, kept working, searching for traction. Essentially, in extreme conditions, it turned into those very motorized sleds that even its creators wrote about with surprise. It didn't rock, it didn't nosedive on bumps, maintaining stability. Incredible lightness. It was more than 300 kilograms lighter than the Willys. This meant less ground pressure, meaning a lower chance of getting stuck. It meant better handling and lower fuel consumption. The Germans compensated for the lack of four-wheel drive with a limited slip differential, later versions, and, again, smart weight distribution. The main mass of the engine was on the driven rear axle, improving traction. The very first tests in Poland in 1939 showed its potential but also revealed flaws. Soldiers complained. The minimum speed of 8 kilometers per hour was too high for marching troops. Porsche quickly revised the gearbox, adding a reduction gear that lowered the minimum speed to 4 kilometers per hour, the pace of a leisurely walk. Some elements were reinforced, and after that, the car remained virtually unchanged. Do you know why? Because it was already close to ideal for its tasks. The Germans, unlike, say, the Soviet industry, did not strive for endless modernizations at the expense of quantity. The established assembly line at the giant factory in Fallersleben, now Wolfsburg, stamped out thousands of these vehicles. Part 3. On all fronts. A steel witness to catastrophe. The Kübelwagen became ubiquitous. It can be seen in photos in the Greek mountains, Norwegian fjords, the sun-scorched courtyards of Stalingrad, and the narrow streets of occupied Paris. It was used by sappers, signalmen, staff officers, and field gendarmes. It became as much a symbol of the German soldier as the Stahlhelm helmet or the MP40. It was valued for its unpretentiousness. Low-octane gasoline? Not a problem. Lack of maintenance? It'll keep going a bit longer. It was part of the terrible but well-oiled military machine of the Wehrmacht. A most interesting fact, the view from the outside. When the Allies in 1943 captured the first trophy Kübelwagens in North Africa, They subjected them to the most thorough study. And they were astonished. They expected to see something primitive but saw elegant engineering solutions. British and American specialists took it apart down to the last screw and conducted their own tests. And you know what they did? They published a detailed technical manual for its repair and operation for their own troops. Imagine, a war is raging, and you're publishing an instruction manual for enemy equipment. Why? First, to be able to repair captured units and use them themselves, which they did. Second, it was an acknowledgement of its qualities. They were preparing for the invasion of Europe and understood they would encounter this vehicle en masse, and they needed to be ready for it. Isn't that the highest praise? Part 4. Legacy. The Beetle's shadow in the post-war world. The war ended. The factory in Wolfsburg lay in ruins. But the fate of the Kübelwagen and the Beetle turned out to be astonishing. The Allies, studying the factory, were shocked by the scale of forced labor but saw the industrial potential. Ironically, it was British Major Ivan Hurst who played a key role in reviving the factory. Light transport was needed for the occupation forces and for devastated Germany. And once again, familiar cars began to be assembled in the workshops. At first, several thousand Kübelwagens were assembled from pre-war stockpiles for the armies and services. And then came the era of the civilian Beetle. That very Beetle, the dream of which was exploited by the Nazis, became a symbol of the post-war German economic miracle, a symbol of freedom and democracy for the whole world. Porsche's brilliant and simple design outlived its creators and political regimes. And what about the Kübelwagen? Its direct descendant can be considered the Volkswagen Iltis Polecat off-roader, which was used by the Bundeswehr and even won the legendary Paris-Dakar Rally Raid in 1980, proving that the concept of a light, maneuverable off-roader with smart weight distribution was alive. Conclusion. Mechanics beyond morality. Reflecting on the history of the Kübelwagen, I come to a complex conclusion. Mechanics, engineering, they exist outside of politics and morality. A design can be brilliant, and the goals it serves can be monstrous. One can admire the ingenuity of the solution with the flat underside and air cooling, while understanding that this vehicle helped prolong the bloodiest war in history. That is its main paradox and main lesson. It wasn't better or worse than the Willys. It was different. The Willys is like a Swiss Army knife. Reliable, straightforward, carrying the might of American industry. The Kübelwagen is clever German mechanics, where a task is solved not by brute force but by intellect. Their confrontation on the battlefields was a confrontation of two schools of thought, two economies, two civilizations. And today, looking at modern SUVs, we see echoes of those solutions. Independent suspensions, smart locking systems, lightweight materials. The spirit of the Kübelwagen, the spirit of efficiency and simplicity, still lingers in engineering departments. That's the story. From a propaganda dream of a people's car, through the crucible of the most terrible war, to an icon of the post-war world. A machine that began as a promise of happiness became a tool of war, and its foundation achieved immortality. If you've read this far, you're a true enthusiast of history and technology. Write in the comments, what do you think? Could the Beetle's fate have been different without the military order? What other machinery from that era evokes the same mixed feeling of admiration and rejection in you? Let's discuss. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll regularly release such deep and dramatic stories about things that changed our world. There's much more unexplored ahead.